Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Operator Framework Working Group meeting. My name is Daniel, and I'll be the host for today. I'll get us started here with our RFCs. To begin with, we have an RFC on the FBC graph deprecation delegation identification with a lazy consensus date of the 6th of October, so just a few days from now. Would this like to speak on this at all, or yeah. If not, and then we can just move on. Like I said, the date is the 6th, so
there's still I put a bunch of comments. Well, I don't know which one I put comments on, but there's still some active discussion going on in some of these briefs. So
okay.
I don't know, Jordan, if you have a good idea that we'll be able to close this out by then, or if not, we can always extend it.
Yeah, so my plan is to try to close those out today. We'll see what the rate of continued discussion is on those docs. The intention is definitely not to lazy consensus them while there is active discussion.
Sure.
It's just sort of to give us a no later than if things die down.
Yep, makes perfect sense. We also have OLM v1 graph deprecation delegation here, and the date for this one is the 13th.
Yeah, that one was actually split off from the previous one that we were looking at last week, so it didn't feel fair to have a lazy consensus date of this Friday. So yeah. I pushed it off to Friday following. Again, we'll see how discussion goes there. If it needs more time based on the discussion we're having, we won't close it off. But if it seems like we've reached a consensus around that time, we'll close it out then.
Sounds good. Yeah, if anybody would like to take a look at these and provide some feedback, please do so. Ideally before those dates. And then we have a RFC on redesigning the RuckPack APIs. The date for this being the 10th, looks like. Varsha, are you here? Is there anything you'd like to say on this one? If not, that's fine. It can speak for itself. Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. So this is an RFC just around redesigning the primary RuckPack APIs. I've taken a little bit of a look at this and seems pretty cool. But yeah, let's give this some more time for some feedback and I'll move on. So we have a couple of action items from last week. Alex was going to cut an operator controller release. Did that end up happening?
He wrote in Slack this morning that he has not done it yet, and it's still on his to-do list.
Okay, thanks. And then doing a catalog release for this week, is that going to be necessary? Or is there not really anything to release at this moment?
No, I think we're still sticking with the fact that we did the Vue 0.7.0 release earlier. So I went ahead. I think it's beneficial for us going forward to start putting due dates on the release. so that, or the milestones, so that, you know, these kind of like paperwork is tracked. So there is no need to release catalog D right now, because we've already done a early release of v0.7.0, and I've gone ahead and put a due date for v0.8.0, which is somewhere around the 20th of October. So we have a milestone that we are working on. I'm sure we'll get to that in the milestone check-in. And the next release is due on the somewhere on the 20th of October.
Okay, great. So that release should contain that milestone then.
Yep.
Great. That's it for our old action items checkpoints. We have a discussion topic here on the tenancy discussion. I'll go ahead and open this up. And Chris or Peter, if either of you want to speak on this.
Yes, is Steve on? No. So in this specific ticket, Steve provided some of the summary of the options, and which were mostly, our understanding, they were mostly centric around ways how tenant scoped information can be provided to the requester. And there were three options provided: two server side, one client side. And during the discussion, initially we on our side, we had together with Chris, we had hard time to understand which proposal it actually covers. I think we have now clarity in terms of what was proposed, and that it was not a proposal for solving in general tenancy or having a broader tenancy discussion, but more like how to expose tenant scoped information to controllers. Perhaps the question is, are we on, based on the quick exchange in this, if you scroll down, are we fine in terms of understanding what our position is on the three options provided, and what are really the next steps here in this conversation?
Yeah, so maybe I'll just quickly summarize what I think I came away with is, so we expect a decision on which namespaces are being launched to be done at install time. It's final and immutable at that point. And we expect clients to be aware of this and then, use it to correctly set up the right controllers. And we expect the system to ensure that RBAC is present such that each individual instance of a controller only can look at what it needs to see. If that's a good summary of like how we expect to declare tenancy, and how we expect operators to consume it, I think the next spot on our end is we're basically looking through all the different cases and requirements, making sure we're developing a design that has all of them in mind. And the big question, and maybe this was just out of left field for me, but I just didn't know if we needed to support imposing tenancy requirements on operators that otherwise didn't know about them. And that's why the first two approaches were in there.
I'll give you a priority to Andy.
Thanks. Steve, do we have to strictly make the namespaces immutable, or can we say if you change the configuration, we can, I don't know, restart, redeploy, and you have different namespaces now?
Yeah, I guess, either is fine. It's an open design space.
Yeah, I think the flexibility would be useful. Go ahead, Joe.
The question I had, do we think these are mutually exclusive? And I guess what I'm wondering is, like, For the operators that understand how to consume the declared tenancy model, we can do option 3, and maybe that's where we start. But if we think there's value in supporting arbitrary workloads that need to talk to the API server, is there a separate solution that we could think about that we could still support?
Are you coming at this from the option 1 or 2 angle?
Kind of, but more just of the angle of, if we limit things to controller must understand what OLM is talking about, then that decreases the surface area of what we can support. And maybe that's the right decision, but if there's a way to do it where we don't have to do that, that could be beneficial in terms of just supporting a larger chunk of the ecosystem.
I'm not overly concerned about that because there's not that many different ways that you can specify a list of namespaces. And if there is some non-standardization in that space, then we could probably adapt the OLM APIs to do that translation in YAML. Like, here's how to specify namespaces, for example. So let's cover the 80 to 90% case and take anything else as a one-off to handle separately.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess my point was, let's not completely rule that out when we're designing the 80 to 90% case.
Yeah.
My comment here is that if we start with making clients or controllers aware, yes, while we may restrict what are the existing, code in the field, which or restrict number of consumers correctly initially, but I think it will be a great reality check in terms of which controllers really care about those, and so therefore we can come up with some best practices or adoption patterns, which then can be maybe used on the in the server side approach, right? I think, well, my position would be to start with option 3, make client side fan out, making the controller fully aware of its scope, rather than doing right at the beginning things or simulate or try to hide the complexity on the server side, whereas we already know that tenancy on Kubernetes is not something which is 100% guaranteed or 100% exists. So I think if we make controllers fully aware about the context and do some conscious decisions about in the controller design, I think that's a way to go here.
I agree. I also think that if something changes in Kubernetes to support better tenancy models, or if we come up with a revelation that makes it easier to do 1 or 2, and we've got a bunch of controllers that have implemented 3, we could easily just run those controllers as if they're scoped to the entire cluster, but then still use options 1 or 2, and then those controllers would still work using the 1 or 2 options. So we wouldn't, like, we can always grow in a more dynamic direction, is my point, if we start with 3.
I agreed.
So I will add that with respect to the scoping of the APIs, we are still actively investigating going back to namespace scoped APIs. I don't really think we can have only cluster scoped APIs in a reasonably designed system that meets the needs of the folks that we've been working with, including everybody here. So stay tuned, and we'll have some docs to share soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I don't see any more hands up, so I believe we can move on. Next up, we just have our milestone check-ins. So I'll start with Catalog D. We've got V080, like Onik mentioned. Anybody want to speak to the items here?
I think the only thing to say, again, notice the date over there, so something new that we're trying out. It also keeps us honest about if we are delaying the release or if you're checking it early, releasing early, etc., etc. But yeah, the items, I think it's fully in progress, high confidence that we'll get it done before the due date. I think we're 50% there already, so all green.
Hey, Anik, are there issues under those epic issues that need to also be added to the milestone, just so we can sort of more easily see what the progress of those epic issues are?
Yes, that is a good point. I think the one remaining. Okay, yeah. So the one remaining issue for the content storage plus serving, I think that was already in a milestone, but I think I might have forgotten to push that to the v0.8.0 release. But yes, that's a good point. I can go ahead and add those release other issues to this release too.
Sweet, thanks.
Great, okay. Next up, operator controller. I just see one issue and looks like, oh. Okay, I don't know why I said one issue back there, but there's 5 open here. We were going to be cutting a release of this, so probably one of us could take this as an action item to just move these to the next milestone. Does that sound right to everybody?
Yeah, sounds correct. I just started looking into one of those today, so
Great.
probably worth moving.
Okay. Joe, I see your hand up still. Was that from last time or is it for this?
Yep, sorry, that's from last time.
Oh, no problem. Okay. Then next up we have Ruckpack. And we've got, I don't remember seeing that backlog one before, but maybe it's been there the whole time. Either way, we have 0.14, which has no issues at the moment. Is this what people are expecting, or should we be getting this filled with issues? I know there's still an RFC open on Ruckpack for the API redesigns, so I don't necessarily expect any issues to be in here yet for that. Was there anything else people were hoping would be in here? Yeah, Joe?
I think the main thing that wasn't there as of like yesterday or the day before is the bundle health stuff, which merged.
Oh, great.
There were a
Okay.
few follow-on tasks that we were going to do. I don't know whether we were thinking we'd try to get that in or not, but yeah, I think the main thing for that release was going to be the bundle health stuff.
Right. So, Joaquin, if you're here, would it make sense for us to do a release of Ruckpack at the moment now that all this has been merged?
Well, this is a feature gate feature.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess we can make the release.
Okay, cool. I'm just keeping track of these as action items. I'll have them for the next done for the next agenda. But we should do these as soon as possible, ideally. And then Deppy just says to skip because the milestone isn't current. So I'm just not going to bother unless somebody has something to say there. And
I think I've said that for the last few weeks. Is there something we need to do there, or are we not doing the same process? I'm just curious if we've even talked about this, and maybe there's an action item to capture about doing something here.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the what's going on with milestones. I would like to catch up with Per on this because I think he was doing most of this stuff recently. And I think Per is not here today. Anyway, we'll chat with Per and figure out what we need to do here. But I believe not much in terms of PRs, at least, been going on in Depi in the past few weeks. So.
Yeah, and most of these issues look like they're pretty outdated by pretty much exactly a year almost. And we did do the V010 has been released, so probably doesn't make sense anyway for these to be in here. As an action item, somebody should probably get this cleaned up.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Miguel. Yeah, appreciate that. And apart from that, looks like we've gone through anything. Is there anything anybody wanted to bring up before I do our closing items? Okay. For next week's meeting, would anybody like to volunteer to run the meeting?
I'll do it.
Cool. Thank you, Anik. And with that, I think we are all done for today. Thanks everybody for joining.